Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. And my guest today is Rod Cleef. And Rod has had a great career in real estate, among other things. And he's had the unfortunate experience of losing a lot of money and then recovering from that. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to start about because I love to hear how people overcome adversity, because the truth is, when you're in private business, you are going to overcome adversity probably every 3 to 5 years. At least that's been true for me. So let's bring Rod on and we'll start the conversation. Hey, Rod, how are you today?
Good, Josh. Thanks for having me on. And I think adversity is coming. All you have to do is look at the headlines. So this conversation probably is timely. I appreciate you having me on. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the adversity you had.
Sure.
And so what happened and how did you handle that?
Sure. Well, if you don't mind, let me go back and maybe tell a little of my story, because I think it'll lend itself to give some framework to what we're going to talk about. So I'm a Dutch immigrant. I was born in the Netherlands, wooden shoes and windmills. Immigrated when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert and my mother Svancha. We ended up in Denver, Colorado, and really struggled initially. In fact, I remember going to an expired food store for food. We drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning. I worked close in the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I finally got a job and could buy my own clothes. And I'm sure you've got listeners or viewers that had it harder than I did, but I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And she was a bit of an entrepreneur with her babysitting money. In fact, she invested in the stock market successfully in IPOs, but she also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition was the house right across the street from us when I was about 14, she paid around $30,000. And then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. I said, "What? You made $20,000? You didn't do anything? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate." So I went out and got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18. I could have my own office, which you could do back then with education. They got smart since then. You need some experience before you can be a broker. But, I was going to be rich in real estate. Well, my first year in real estate, I made about $8,000. My second year, maybe $10,000. But my third year, which was 1980, I made over $100,000, which back then was pretty decent money. And what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? And this is what ties into your question. Well, what happened was I met somebody that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology. It was a broker I actually worked with. I was dating his daughter, and because I was smart enough to realize I needed to go work with another broker. But and really that 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset and psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the mechanical stuff we talk about on our podcast, Josh. It's the do and it's the keep doing. It's the pushing through fear. It's the taking the first step. And it's the getting up when you get your butt kicked like I did in 2008. So, fast forward, I've owned a couple thousand houses that I've rented long-term. I own thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I thought I was a freaking real estate god. I got a head so big I could barely fit it through a door.
So
when that happens?
How old were you then?
That was, let's see. So in 2008, I was 40. I'm bad with math in my head. 48. Yeah. Okay, 2008. So I was 48. Yeah. Okay. And so, is that right? 48.
That's close enough.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So I was born in 1960. So that's right. Anyway, I like I said, I thought I was real estate god. When that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008. I lost $50 million in 2008. And I thought I was set for life. And so one of the questions I get asked the most often is, how did you recover? And how I recovered is really getting lined out with my mindset and my psychology again. People committed suicide for comparatively losing the same in the Great Depression and in the 08-09 crisis. And, so it was really important that I get my head right. And so I did. And so, we can talk about some of those strategies if you like, some of those mindset strategies, or we can talk technical, whatever you'd like.
Well, let's talk mindset a little bit, because I actually love having I have this mindset conversation with anybody who ever comes on. I know what your answer is. Your answer, mindset, is always over action. And why do you believe that? Can I ask you that?
Well, I don't believe in mindset over action. I believe mindset is required to take action. So, so,
Okay.
so just to be technically correct, so here are some of the strategies around mindset. For example, I've got a boot camp coming up July 29th, 30th, and 31st in Denver. It's only live one I do all year. And if you're interested in multifamily, I'll give you guys, if you're listening, a code. You can come for $197. So it's not a sales pitch. So it's kind of a no brainer. But the first thing we do there is goal setting on steroids. Because how the heck do you get anything, Josh, if you don't know what it is? If you don't have clarity around what it is that you want and why you want it. So that's the first thing we do there. And
So
there's a reason.
can I just stop you for a second?
Sure.
Can you explain to us what goal setting on steroids is?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me describe it. So, and by the way, if you go to rodslinks.com, I did this on New Year's Day this year. I do it every year around the first to get people juiced, and with music, it's professionally done. There's a guide you can download. But yeah, Rods Links, plural, both words plural, rodslinks.com has that goal setting guide at the bottom. But let me describe it to you. Basically, you pick an hour when you have a lot of energy. Okay, don't do it right after a big meal. Make sure you're well hydrated, drink a lot of water, and then just sit down and write down everything you could ever possibly want in life. All the stuff, the houses, the cars, the boats, the jet skis, the planes. Write down how much cash flow you want from your investment, say in 3 years, and then again in 10 years. Write down how much money you want in the bank in 3 years and 10 years. But take the lid off your brain. Imagine if you write it down, you're going to get it, which is not outside the realm of reality, because that triggers something in your brain called your reticular activating system. And what that is a subconscious filter in your brain that directs you in the direction it thinks you're interested in. And it also keeps you from going crazy from having too many things come into your brain. But you're not aware of it. It's subconscious. And the greatest example of it is when you first buy a car. You never really notice them, and you buy the car and they're everywhere. Were they there before? Of course they were. And that's your reticular activating system. So, but also take the lid off your brain. Imagine if you write it down, you're going to get it, which is not outside like I say, the realm of reality. If you want a yacht, a jet, a private island, write that down, because that's what starts the process. And of course, you got to take massive action and a lot of other things to make those big things happen. But this is what starts that process. And what's sad, Josh, is most people spend more time planning a Christmas or birthday party than they do designing their lives. This is designing your life. And so once you're done with the stuff, write down everything you want to learn in this lifetime. I'm sorry, let's start with, actually back up. Write down everything you want to do in this lifetime. Maybe write a book. Maybe climb every mountain over 14,000 feet. Bucket list stuff. Like I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane a couple years ago. I'll never do it again, but it's off the bucket list. So bucket list stuff too. Write all that stuff down. Places you want to visit. Maybe you want to write all that stuff. Write a book, whatever it is. But also write down what you want to learn. Maybe you want to learn so it's not just the stuff. It's everything you want to do, be, or have. And so write down, maybe you want to learn a foreign language. If you want to learn multifamily, like I said, come to my boot camp in Denver in July, because opportunity is coming, but you got to be up to speed before it hits. If we're in the midst of this upcoming recession and you're trying to learn this business, it's going to be too late. You need to learn it right now. But anyway, so everything you want to learn, write that down. Lastly, write down who you want to help. We'll do more for others than we'll ever do for ourselves. And again, this is the fuel. This is what gets you to push through fear or push through limiting beliefs. Or maybe you're comfortable. The comfort zone's a nice warm place, and we all know nothing grows there, right? So this is that fuel. So write down who you want to help. I bought my parents a house here on a canal when my dad was alive. Bought him a car, took him on cruises. Write down who you want to do things for. Then once you can't think of another thing, there's a couple more quick steps. One, you need to put a time limit on each goal. Put how many years you think it's going to take you to achieve it. So put a 1, a 3, a 5, even a 10 or a 20. Recognizing that as human beings, we will overestimate what we can do in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in 5, 10, or 20 years. I'll give you an example of this. Now, please know I'm not bragging with this. I just want to show you what's possible through visualization, prayer, whatever you want to call it. So when I moved to Denver, when I was 18, I knew I wanted to ultimately live on the beach. And of course, there's no beach in Denver. But I would visualize the surf and the sand and the beach and the palm trees and the waves. And 20 years later, I built this 10,000 square foot, $8 million mansion on the beach. On the beach on one side and had my boats on the backside. It was called a Gulf to Bay. It was like a slice to an island. The reason I bring that up is because that was unthinkable when I was 18. But I visualized it and I made it happen, and you can too. Okay, so write down how long it's going to take you to achieve each goal.
I need to stop you for a second, just because that's classic Tony Robbins stuff. And Tony's great. And he's a really smart guy. There's no question about it.
Right.
Mike, our listeners own
Yeah, I
construction
spent 20
companies.
years following Tony Robbins around the planet. So you're absolutely right. It's definitely Tony Robbins stuff.
Yeah. So the thing here is what I've learned with our listeners is that when I give them 18 things to do, they get nothing done because their attention is really diffused. So we tend to use what we call OKRs, which stands for objectives and key results. And we only allow them to work on one or two of those at a time, and we go way faster than if we're trying to get 18 things accomplished. The other comment I have, which is
so what you're saying is this description of a process to teach goals is too cumbersome? Is that, I just want to make sure we're communicating.
What I'm saying is it can be a little bit confusing.
Okay. Well, then that's why I offered the link.
Let me continue, please. There's another thing I also would like to just push back a little bit on, is that, a lot of stuff I've learned over the years. If I was 23 or 24 years old when I started in business and wrote down everything I learned, I probably would have written down 5%, if that, of what I've actually learned over the years. Because the things I need to learn often don't become apparent until I need to learn them. So for me to write down everything I want to learn it's interesting for that particular time.
And I want to rebut to what you just said, because this is a process you should do at least once a year, because your goals transform.
Okay.
I achieved all these stupid, goals that I thought were important, material goals, the house, the Lamborghini, the Rolls Royce, the Bentley, all the stupid crap that I thought was important at one time. But, now my goals are teaching and helping people. My students own over 70,000 units, and I've only been teaching less than 5 years. I've fed 130,000 children for the last 22 years. Fed tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local children, tens of thousands of teddy bears to local police departments. So my goals evolved. So this is not something that's once and done, just to be clear, Josh. This is an evolution as we grow.
So we're clear on that. So the where the OKRs fit in is I have this wish list. Now I need to have something where I make it operational, where I do stuff that leads me in the right direction.
Right.
And the reason we use objectives and key results is we have one or two objectives we're working on, but we're probably going to have 10 to 15 key results that have to happen for that objective to become real. So by chunking down from tasks to key results to objectives, we're going to move a lot faster than if I do the mindset stuff and then I start writing goals for all of it.
Well, at the tail end of that goal setting workshop that I did on New Year's Day, I do a weekly planning process. I train a weekly planning process, which includes just what you described, chunking it down and time blocking and the Pareto principle, prioritizing, which, it's another version of your OKR.
You just said two incredibly important things to learn. Could you explain what time blocking and the Pareto principle is, please?
Sure. Well, as part of that weekly planning process, again, go to rodslinks.com. It's at the end of the goal setting, and it's very powerful. It's how I managed two very large companies at the same time, and paid attention to what was most important. These were multi-million-dollar businesses that I own. And so let me just briefly describe the process. The first thing is celebrating what you got done, because happiness doesn't come from the goals. Happiness comes from progress and growth. But you've got to consciously acknowledge it. So again, I'm describing this weekly planning process. So step one is acknowledge what you got done, okay, and celebrate it consciously, even if it's just a little thing, because then you're happy when you have the setbacks and the delays. You stay happy because you're progressing and growing. So that's step one. Step two, I tell people to journal, because journaling gives you clarity, and clarity is power. And so if at the very least journal things you're grateful for. So that's step two, okay? Yep. Step three, why are you laughing?
Back in the very early 80s, there was a seminar called Money and You. Actually, that's where Tony was discovered. And one of the major statements that Marshall Thurber would say all the time is clarity is power. And every time I hear that, I just kind of giggle to myself a little bit, because it's true.
It's absolutely true. I actually like Marshall Thurber. Who would think it is? Is that Blue Ocean Strategy?
No, Marshall Thurber was the founder of a New Age workshop called Money and You.
Okay.
back in the
Yeah.
early 80s, late 70s.
Okay. Well, journaling gives you that clarity, and even if you just start with gratitude and just things you're grateful for, magic moments that you had. So that's step two. But then the third thing that I have people do is make a list of everything that's most important in their lives. Start with the people. Make a list of the people that matter. So start there. Then list all of the high level thinking areas or impact areas of their core business. If it's, if they own a business, if they work at a W-2 job, list the high level things. Shouldn't be more than, in a large company, for me, it was like 12 things. It shouldn't be more than typically 5 to 8 things. High level areas you need to think about: sales, marketing, IT, things of that nature. Make a list of those high level thinking areas. Then, for me, I would also have my foundation in there, things that I need to pay attention to with my foundation, other businesses that I own, charities I'm involved with, and just high level thinking list or impact list of the areas that need your attention consistently, that are going to have the most impact on the business. And then for me, I tell people, put some declarations on there as well, things you're committed to, not goals, like health related declarations, relationship declarations, things of that nature. Like, I've got, what can I do to rock my wife's world this week? Lifting a different body part once a week, or reading a good book for 30 minutes a day. Think just declarations of commitments. So you've got those things on, and then I tell people, print it on one sheet of paper. Yeah, or handwrite it if you're a handwriter. If you're not a word person, handwrite it on a sheet of paper. And that becomes a very powerful document, because frankly, it's the most important areas of your life. And again, it gives you clarity. And again, clarity is power. And so it gives you clarity. It also, believe it or not, it's counterintuitive, but it greatly minimizes, if not eliminates, overwhelm, because you've got everything in your whole life on one sheet of paper. And it's a very powerful document that you look at on a weekly basis when you're doing your goal, your planning, and to make sure nothing gets dropped. So if there's someone you need to reach out to, send some love to, it's on there. If there's a particular area of your business, a lot of times, for example, contractors, they'll focus on bringing the business in the door, and then they focus on delivering on that business. They forget to bring the business in the door, and so that's feast or famine all the time. That's an example of what this process mitigates. And so the next step then is to create your list of tasks for the week from that list. I'm almost done. Create your list of tasks for the week, and just for the things you're committed to doing that week, not projects, goals, things like that. If you have a project, you're only going to list the tasks you're committed to completing that week on your task list. Okay, so the list is not overwhelming. Then we get into the Pareto principle. Basically, a guy named Pareto a few hundred years ago came to the realization that typically on any list, there's a few items that will get you exponentially further than the bulk of them. And it's the 80-20 rule, for another way to describe it. And you look for what those things are, that are going to get you further on your list, and you identify them, you circle them, and then you block time for them. It's that simple. And so you're focused on what's.
This is a really important key, is that the first thing you should do every morning is get up, put your tasks on your calendar at a particular time, and you'll find you actually do them if you're not looking at a list. It's been my experience.
Okay. And this is a weekly process that I'm describing here, but
I
don't disagree.
I think there should be a daily process. It takes 5 minutes a day, but if you do it in the day, it's sort of like a lot of companies do what they call a daily huddle, where everybody huddles together and they review what they're trying to accomplish in that particular day. It's part of a process called Scrum. And it's a very powerful way of doing stuff when you break things into, here's what I'm going to do today versus a week, which, you can let things slide easily on a week. But if you go day by day by day and you say, here are the 6 things I'm going to accomplish, and here's when I'm going to do them, there's a tendency of doing more of it. The other thing I wanted to mention is there's a guy named Brian Main, who I'm very fond of, really interesting guy. And he's come up with a process called goal mapping, where he takes all the things you just described about setting goals and maps it onto a one-page page. And what looks like a mind map, it's not quite a mind map, but it's pretty darn close to it. And a mind map, by the way, is a visual representation of an outline that you're putting together. In my experience, they're much faster to do, and they tend to stick better than looking at a list of stuff. But that's just my I know people that hate mind maps also, but I happen to like them a lot. So there, I'll get off my soapbox for a second. Does that make sense to you, Rod?
Yeah, no, I believe in mind mapping for sure. I'm not familiar with what you just described, but I love it. I do it. I do it when I'm trying to be creative. It's a very creative process. A lot of people use a whiteboard on a wall, or they use sticky. Some people use sticky notes and group them and things like that. There's actually great mind mapping software. I use this stuff called MindJet Mind Manager that
Yeah.
allows you to link things and draw lines between them. It's very, very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of really good programs out there that you do that with. So our listeners are people in the construction world. And I have always felt that people in the construction world miss the boat a lot on real estate ownership. And my bet is you actually have an opinion about that. So what is your opinion?
Well, I mean, the construction industry is a great framework for what I teach, which is buying apartment buildings and buying multifamily of any size. So that I'm not remiss, let me mention this, the deal I'll give your listeners if they're interested. Like I said, I've got a 3-day event in Denver coming up July 29th, 30th, and 31st. It's not a big sales pitch. It's literally 3 days of training. And if you use the code RODFRIEND when you check out, you can come for $197, and it includes some awesome bonuses. But the website is rodindenver.com. Or if you're driving and you're listening to this, you can just text my name Rod to 72345. But just remember the code RODFRIEND. And if you have any trouble, if you DM me on any social channel, my team will help you get connected, because the price is already almost double that now. But you can come for $197. And it's drinking through a fire hose about this business. But that's the thing. If you're in the construction industry and you're not buying assets that throw off cash flow. I mean, that's the name of your podcast here, is cash flow is you're in the perfect position to capitalize on real estate. And whether it's, I love multifamily. I think it's the most resilient asset class out there. Of course, there are other asset classes that are also very good, but I believe there's incredible opportunity coming, Josh. And I don't know if you want to debate that. You push back on some of the stuff I've said, but if you want to debate that, I believe there's incredible opportunity coming. I saw it in 2008.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay. But you've got to be ready. And, like in 2008, 2009, I was hiding under a rock because I just had my butt handed to me. But, I got crushed by the wave. This time I'm surfing that wave. I'm in a lot of cash. I have access to cash, and I want to capitalize on it. I think there'll be exponential opportunities to maximize what's coming if you're not locked in fear, which is why mindset can be very, very important. The goals can be very important, and other things. If you're listening or watching Josh, you're a leader. There's no question. Maybe you own your own construction company, or some sort of a contracting related business. And right now more than ever, the world needs leaders. And right now it's so important to pay attention to what you're bringing in. Your focus is critical. Don't get me started on the freaking fake news and the crap that the media is putting out there. So you've really got to stand guard at your mind and not bring in the bad stuff. On my podcast, I do a little clip every week called Own Your Power. Yes, it's motivational. And you give me 5 minutes a week, I'll juice you. There's hundreds of them on there. My podcast just broke 13 million downloads. We had our 700th episode last week. Very proud of that. It's called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. And again, if you go to that rodslinks.com, you can see there's a link there to that, as well as that goal setting.
So Rod, we are out of time.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
And you've given us a lot of places how to get your deals. How would people contact you if they want to have a conversation?
Yeah, if you go to that Rod's Links, all my social media outlets are there. It's a link tree. It's got Facebook and YouTube, and they've even got me on freaking TikTok now. I couldn't spell TikTok 90 days ago. So just DM me on any social channel if you've got a question. There's lots of free resources there at Rod's Links. There's free books. There's my number one best-selling book. You can just pay the shipping and get that. It's like $6 or something. So there's a lot of free resources. If you're interested in this business, for God's sakes, come to Denver, because I think you'll be very glad you came. If you come and you don't love it, I'll give you your money back. I don't mean like it. I mean love it. So, yeah. Thanks.
So, thank you very much, Rod. And I'm going to ask you to do only one thing today. I usually ask you two, but I didn't prepare properly. So we're just going to ask you to do one. And the one thing is, wherever you happen to be listening to this show, please go and subscribe and give us an honest rating and review. It's really important. It's a way for people to get the word out. We're starting to get a lot more downloads right now, which is kind of cool. I'm very excited about that. I've been doing this for 7 years, and it's an instant success after 7 years, which is kind of normal in the world. But at any rate, just go and rate and review us honestly. I would appreciate that. And thanks a lot for listening today. You're with Rod Cleef. I'm Josh Patrick. You're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.